Good morning. People are rolling in. I'll wait just a few moments here for people to get plugged in here. I hope everybody's got their cup of coffee and caffeine this morning to stay alert and be able to get the most out of the content we have for you this morning. Welcome to Minnesota Crossroads Career Network. Getting people rolling in here. Well, terrific. I'll get started and as people continue to join us. My name is 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚. I lead Minnesota Crossroads Career Network, and I'm really glad to have you join us this morning. We have some great content for you. I've got a few opening remarks, and then we have a short video for you. And then you're all here, I know, to see and hear from Dave Sparkman, who will be talking about determining the right culture fit. And that's a tough one. And so Dave brings a lot of great insight to that question, and looking forward to having you be able to benefit from all of that. As we get going, there's also, after Dave's done, I'll be going through a quick presentation on all the things that you can take advantage of through Crossroads. And we have a number of things that we offer all free to you, and we hope that you are able to benefit from all of that in your job search. Job search is up and down emotional roller coaster, and so we want to help you, give you the tools and resources and encouragement and hope in the process to be able to succeed as easily and quickly as possible with the least amount of pain. Part of our hope with Crossroads is that along with helping people succeed in their job search, we also talk about bigger issues and point people to the hope and encouragement of Jesus Christ. It should be no surprise that the Bible has a great deal of wisdom for life. Now, there's a cliche often used that the Lord will never give you more than you can handle. People that say that mean well, trying to encourage someone facing challenges that they have the strength to overcome. The thing is, that idea is not in the Bible. There certainly are times that we face things in our life that are beyond our ability to handle. The Bible does say, though, that when we trust in the Lord, He will never leave us and never forsake us. And in the book of Isaiah, there's a great passage that makes it clear that it's His strength and not ours that gets us through the storms in life. It says, "Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, He increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." That's some great encouragement. And when you face challenges in life, like a job loss, put your trust in God and lean into His strength when you feel like your own strength is growing thin. And that's pretty common in a job loss, right? And so really encourage you to look to God to get for your source of strength and grit and persistence. Let me open us up in a word of prayer, and then we'll continue with the rest of our content this morning. Lord, I'm grateful that we can come together, even if it's just by video this morning, but that people from all around the country tend to join us, and we're grateful that we can come together in this way. We pray that you use this time and the information talked about here to benefit those that are participating, that everyone can walk away with some bits of information that are helpful and encouraging and useful and effective in their pursuit of a new career. We thank you, Lord, for the many ways you do bless us, and we pray that you use this time for your purposes. In Jesus' name, amen. With that, I've got a brief video here by 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚. As we're in the middle of football playoff season, it's pretty appropriate. 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚, as you may know, it was a football coach and is kind of seen today as kind of the father of wisdom in football. And he's had his ups and downs and has had certainly losses, but he's also won Super Bowls. And grateful that he is able to share his wisdom and talk about how he's gotten through his ups and downs. So let me share the screen here. We'll get started. And then after this, I'll introduce Dave Sparkman.
2005 season, we're the #1 seed. We've got a great team, a team really without any weaknesses. We've got home field advantage. Everyone is saying it's our year. We end up falling behind to the Steelers in our first round game. We march back. We've got a chance to tie the game up and go into overtime. And Mike Vanderjagt's our kicker, extremely accurate guy, never misses a big kick, and he misses. Pittsburgh goes on to win the Super Bowl. And now you kind of hear it from everybody, well, the Colts are never going to win one. They've had all these teams that are really good, but something's missing, and that window of opportunity is going to close up on them. I can remember thinking, man, as good a team as we had, if we don't win it now, we may never win it. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. I think you can glorify the Lord in every circumstance. How you respond to failure, how you respond to disappointment says a lot more than how you do in successes. God has taken some unexpected things in my life over and over, and really, I think, tried to find out if I was going to stay with Him or if I was ever going to get to the point where I say, this is too much. I'm going to go my own way. I started coaching when I was 25 years old. And probably by the time I'd been an assistant coach for 10, 11 years, the word was getting out, this guy might be a good head coach. I started to interview for head coaching jobs, but everyone was looking for that stereotypical coach, looking for the guy who was going to demand perfection from his players, who was going to show that emotion and everything that they expected to see in a head coach. And that wasn't me. How much does this mean to you? How much are you prepared to sacrifice to lead his team? And what's important to you in life? And you know what the man wants to hear, but it's not really what's in your heart. I'm going to give you a lot. I believe I'm going to deliver you a championship, but no, the team is not going to be the most important thing. When I was called to interview at Tampa, I told Lauren, we're not going to get this job. I don't know anybody there. I have no connections. And so when I got the job, I said, you know what, we want to win a Super Bowl, and I believe we will. I want to do it the right way. I want to do it so that our young men are people that the community is going to be proud of. I want to do it in such a way that we're doing the right things with our families, and it's going to be a win-win situation. I believe it can be done, and I believe it can be done here. I came down feeling like, hey, this is where God wants us. We're going to win. Everything's going to be great because this is God's plan. It's not my plan. That's, to me, one of the hardest things in life, when you have an idea of the way things are going to go, what you hope for, what you dream about, what you pray for, and it doesn't come through. That's when it's easy to get disappointed with God. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it pan out the way I thought it would? It was one of the biggest disappointments in my life because I did feel like the Lord had brought me down to Tampa. And I had to realize that it worked out. It just didn't work out the way I had planned it. I didn't know at the time when I got fired what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to look for something in Tampa outside of football, or was I supposed to look for another job, another city? And Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, called me and he said, we're making a change at head coach with the Indianapolis Colts, and you're the guy that I want to be our coach. I believe in all the things that you believe in. We want to do things the right way. We want to win, but win with the right kind of people, and you're the guy to lead us. And that was a message that I really needed to hear at that point. My favorite passage in the Bible is where Christ says, "What would it profit a man to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul?" And with 31 years in the National Football League, I've seen that a lot. And so to me, that was the thing that I always wanted to tell my players. Don't put this game first. Don't make football everything in your life. How we relate to each other, how we live, what you have in your heart for eternity, how you're responding to the Lord. That's the most important thing. This game will take care of itself. Even though we, for 4 or 5 years had those bitter disappointments at the end of each year, I never gave up. It wasn't to the point where I said, hey, we can never win this thing, but I got to the point where if that is what God has in store, it'll be a bitter pill to swallow, but I'm going to be okay with that. We've been through a lot, and our slogan by that time was, "It's our time." Those disappointments were in the past, but now it's our time, and we got to seize the moment, and we did that. Amazing thing in the locker room. Super Bowls are so different. As soon as you win, the celebration starts. You have a ceremony out on the field. It maybe takes 40 minutes to get everybody back together. Many of our players were just waiting. They said, "Coach, we've got to finish this one like we have every other game. We've got to have the team prayer." And we asked that the reporters shut their cameras down and let us pray. And I was so proud of the guys for hanging in there and saying, this is what we want to do. We want to honor the Lord in this victory. And we did that. One photographer didn't honor our wishes. He took a picture of it, but that picture went all over the internet, went all over, and it was really a great tribute to what that team had in mind of putting the Lord first, even at the Super Bowl. Every decision I make in life, I'm going to make it through the lens of Jesus Christ. I'm going to put him out there first, and my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own desires are going to be second. It's that simple. And if we do that, Christ promised that he would come into our lives, he'd be our head coach, and he'd guide us to that victory, that ultimate victory. I'm 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚, and I am second.
I've seen that video several times, and it's encouraging, and it's just a good reminder that God doesn't promise that he's always going to provide all of our wildest dreams. He does provide, as I mentioned, that he's always going to walk with us, and if we keep our priorities right and put him first, that he's going to walk alongside of us no matter what's going on. Next, I'm glad to introduce Dave Sparkman. That's what you all came here to see this morning, and I'm really glad to be able to call Dave a friend and be able to have him speak this morning. Dave, if you don't know, has been the Chief Culture Officer for United Health Group, just a small company with about 350,000 employees. And changing culture in an organization that size is no small task. And so when he talks about culture, he knows what he's talking about, and has a lot to share this morning and insight for you. As you may have some questions, put them into the chat in the chat box on Zoom, and we'll be able to answer some questions. He'll be able to get to those for you. But The other thing that you should know about Dave is that he also leads the national Crossroads organization and has been doing that since he's left United Health Group the last few years ago. And really glad to be able to get guidance and insights and help from him on that. He also was the one that initiated Crossroads at Grace Church in Eden Prairie here in Minnesota. And so he has been plugged into this whole program for a very long time and has a lot of insight from that. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you for the next hour and really glad to have you here. Thanks.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you, Harry. It's a pleasure to be here. Boy, when you say turn it over to me for the next hour, I feel, I don't know if I have enough stuff for an hour, but although I can get rambling pretty good. So it's a pleasure to be with you here. I couldn't think of probably a more fitting video for an intro into culture than what you just saw on I Am Second with Tony Dungy. So I'll probably be referring to that several times, but as you think about what I hope that you'll glean from this presentation is what are some very practical ways that you can start to see ahead of an offer or ahead of an interaction with a company where you can determine what that cultural fit would be. What is the corporate culture of the organization that you're going to be potentially getting involved with? And a lot of times when people talk about the culture fit, unfortunately, they're talking about things that just are a little puzzling and potentially a little frustrating to some of us. As you see on the screen, how many of us heard, "I'm sorry, but you're just not the right fit." You know, when you finish second, that doesn't feel very good. And what exactly are they saying? Or perhaps it's not even then. You've landed a job only to discover that the company or your boss or the team isn't quite the right fit for you. And you're the one saying it's the right fit. But yet if someone pinned you down and said, "Well, what exactly do you mean by that?" Most people would have a hard time describing it, but they know it and they feel it. And that's the thing about culture is it's very hard at times to pin down, but we kind of know it and we feel it. As you know, politics have been in the news constantly, and with the Iowa caucuses just finishing, you probably all have read multiple articles, and a couple of the articles that I've seen are headlines. You know, it talks about Iowans voting with Midwestern values. Well, what exactly do they mean by that? What exactly are Midwestern values? And now as they go to New Hampshire, they'll talk about the Northeastern values. Well, I think we're all in one country, but yet, even though I may not be able to define exactly what they're saying, I kind of have a feel for what they're saying. And that's what's so important is that corporate culture, many times, it's about the feel. And if we had the time to stop and get into a group dialogue here, and I asked you questions about some of the companies that you've worked for, or if you had a chance to name some of the companies that you've worked for, we could probably all identify what we think or feel the corporate culture is around some of those areas. We're gonna delve into that. So there's kind of a mystery, but yet I believe that you can tangibly determine or get a really good picture of what that culture fit can be. So sometimes many times, if you're like most people, you're only concerned about the corporate cultural fit is if you landed in the wrong direction. You know, you've landed and it's like, boy, I am not a fit here. Something is not quite working. What is it? And so we're going to go through some questions that you may potentially be able to ask, a process to follow. As with everything in a job search, there is a process to follow. If you have been involved with Crossroads Career for a while, there's 7 steps that we believe will take you through a successful and a soul-edifying job search, right? It's far different than just filling out an application. And, oh, I filled one out and now I've got to fill another out. So that is a process. That's not a process we would highly recommend. We would highly recommend a process that's fully engaged with people and networking with others. And not just because statistically that it shows that that's the most effective way to get it, but also spiritually, the Great Commission talks about us going into all the world. And when you think about networking, if we change that paradigm to where you're going to be able to minister to others as you go, it changes, at least for me, that position of what networking could be about. So we're going to build all that in and get after what this could mean. Unfortunately, looking for a cultural fit is not as simple as looking at some of these diagrams, and you can potentially see all of them except for my face blocking one of them. Some that you'll see, the handshake, those hands fit together. The puzzle pieces, those pieces fit together. The other four, you can see there's a little something different. Corporate culture is a little more difficult to determine than just looking at a picture, but it's the same perspective, that same position I'd like you to keep in mind as we go through this presentation of some points that I have, because there's a perspective that as you go through the interview, the application, your entire job search, if you take this perspective with the appropriate filters, I think you will be able to more clearly see the cultural fit, particularly of the corporate culture. Again, it's not as easy as a dating app. My youngest daughter is single and is dating, and she uses, I don't even know what the name of the app is, but she says, "Dad, the photos of the guys in there are not exactly what they really look like. I mean, they're loading maybe their best picture. I'm not going to accuse them of lying with the picture, but when I see them in person, it's a very different picture." Or you can't just go on a Zoom meeting, one date, and arrive at a conclusion that, boy, there's the right person I want to spend the rest of my life with. But when you look at the job search and the interview process, that's kind of what's expected. We're going to have a screening call for you, maybe a Zoom where you could actually speak to someone. Then you're going to interview with someone for, I don't know, a few hours. And then we're going to ask you to make a decision where you spend the majority of your waking hours with this organization. So when you think about the dating analogy, or even the interview process itself, to figure out the corporate culture is almost impossible to do from that short stint of time that you're with someone. However, and that's why it's the overall process that I'm going to encourage you to take a look at as we go through, and you can use throughout. So I've been talking about corporate culture, the one side, you're trying to fit you and a corporate culture. Well, what exactly is corporate culture? How do we define it? Well, there's a variety of different combinations, perhaps, of definitions, the values, the norms, patterns of behaviors, what people say about you when you leave the room. Oh, I've heard somebody, oh, he's a good guy. Well, what exactly do you mean by that? It's just the way we do things around here. If you think of Chick-fil-A, and if you were to ask me about the culture of Chick-fil-A, probably there's two things that I know about Chick-fil-A that just immediately pop to mind. Number one, they're closed on Sundays. And number two, they say, "My pleasure." When you say thank you for your food, they say, "My pleasure." And that signals to us their position, their posture in service to us. And if you said McDonald's or Burger King, you get a different answer, right? We may not even know exactly. Well, we think of the golden arches, for example, of McDonald's, but what does that really tell us about corporate culture? And if you start to look at what it is that what happens when theoretically no one is looking, that's something that I think can tell you quite a bit about corporate culture. Someone shared with me another definition from the Netflix series now, Ted Lasso. And evidently it's at near the end of the series. And now they're winning. They've been losing, and now they're winning in the English football, soccer matches. And the reporter that's been covering them goes and confronts Ted and says, "Hey, I think I understand." And here's how that reporter defines culture. He says, "You've done this over 3 seasons where slowly but surely you're building a club-wide culture of trust and support through thousands of imperceptible moments, all leading to their inevitable conclusion of total football. And I thought, wow, what a great definition. Thousands of imperceptible moments. My wife and I are parents of 4 now young adult children. And if you were to, and thankfully, they still seem to enjoy being around us. They enjoy being around each other. We're very blessed with the interactions we have with our children. And somebody might say that we've been successful parents. But if someone were to ask me, well, what was the key thing? What was the one thing you did that seemed to create the ambiance of your family wanting to come together? That's a very difficult, impossible question to answer, because much like the Ted Lasso definition, there's thousands of imperceptible moments. I mean, I could tell you about how Carrie, my wife, would ensure that the kids learn to say thank you, and how you told a child to remember to say thank you when they're 2 is different than when they're 5, which is different when they're 12, which is different than, yes, you still need to remind them when they're 18, for those of you who have teenagers coming up. I coached all of the kids' sports when they were growing up, soccer and basketball. And I don't know that I can even begin to tell you the different learning moments that you had in sporting opportunities that also turned into parental conversations. Sometimes not even with my own kids. I mean, you kind of become the parent to the kid when you're the coach. So corporate culture, we can define it. What I'm trying to get across is there's a lot of different ways to define it, and there's a little bit of a mystery as to what that is. And yet we're trying to pin it down to say, how can we be as clear as that handshake signal, that picture, to see what the corporate culture is? So we're going to get after that, because ultimately what we're trying to solve is very, very simple. In a job search, we're trying to match what you do best as the candidate to what the company needs most. Pure and simple. That's the missing piece of the puzzle for many organizations. Unfortunately, many organizations are not really the best at defining what they need most. For some of the years that I spent at United Health Group, I was responsible for one of our division segments in HR. And when we would have turnover, of course, we'd say, well, let's take a fresh look at the job description. And I can't begin to tell you the number of times when I would sit down with the hiring manager and we'd say, okay, let's look at this job description. It's an important position we're trying to hire, executive level position. This is not, I need another one of the 20,000 nurses that we had to replace a nurse. This was a singular position for the job description. They'd say, well, man, I just need somebody like Sally. I just need, okay, thanks a lot for that description. Tell me about Sally. Help me understand what it is that Sally did to create a successful role. And oftentimes they couldn't really articulate it. So even though we would have here a very simple definition of what we're trying to solve, it's very difficult to get the answer. And not only from the organization of what they need most, but also you and what you do best. Here's a quick slide of what it could entail to know yourself. What are your core values? What's your life purpose statement? What are your abilities? What experiences have you had? What are your levels of interest? About your interests, which ones are passions for you? I mean, I won't read them all. You can see there's 14 of them there. And if you're like most people, including myself, it would be difficult. It is very hard for me to say, well, here's exactly what those things are. I can tell you my life purpose statement is to glorify Christ by helping other people and organizations achieve their aspirations and his purposes. That's my life purpose statement. I could tell you my core values. Stewardship is one of my core values. Love is one of my core values. Variety is one of my core values. But if I had to go through and talk about my personality or my dreams, boy, there's a good one. Those are all changing things. My instincts. So oftentimes we think it's just the organization that's a bit of a mystery to figure out. I would encourage you all to look yourself a bit more. And this is where Crossroads Career, we think we can help you with that, because most of the time people just haven't taken the time to figure this out. And often with a coach or some guidance or some facilitation, things flow a bit easier. And when we talk about aptitudes and altitude in our 7-step process, this is where you can start to uncover some of these things to more clearly know who you are and what you're about. If you think about that Tony Dungy video, he was very clear that football was not going to be the thing he would sacrifice everything for. And he knew that that's what the answer was to the equation that the interviewer was looking for. The owner of the team was, or the general manager was looking for, I'm going to, literally sleep in the film room at night during the season because I'm going to give everything I have to the team. And Dungy was very clear that's not what he was going to be about. Well, we are not going to spend most of our presentation talking about knowing yourself, even though I could go on and on and on about how important this is. I know most of you have probably showed up thinking you know quite a bit about yourself and want to know more about the organization and how do we pull that apart. But I just encourage you not to rush past this one. So the big question oftentimes I hear as they think about the organization is, well, I want to make sure that I find out enough about the organization so I can like the organization. And I would encourage you not to like the organization necessarily. The question more is fit, and the question is contribution. What can I contribute to the organization? Kind of getting back to that basic equation of what you do best and they need most. So it's not about liking the organization, although I do hope you would like the organization. It's where can you fit and fill a role that the organization needs and that they can benefit from that contribution. Culture cannot be overemphasized, in my opinion. And you've all heard the famous Peter Drucker quote, "Culture eats strategy for lunch." And the same is said for job candidates. We talk in the media talks about quick quits oftentimes, where people land in a position, they're hired, they start, thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours are poured into training for these people, and then they quit. It's a significant cost to the organization. And yet, a lot of times, if you start to piece that apart, why does that happen? The underlying root cause is culture. But even if you arrive at that root cause, okay, what do I do about it? Those thousands of imperceptible moments, and Dave, you said you can't even define what's happening as a parent to explain what, in your opinion, your kids are great kids. How do you start to get after that? All right, well, I'm going to give you a few more challenges to overcome to keep that perspective. I mentioned the organization may not know itself very well, just the job description being one of them. Oh, and let's remember that the hiring managers are people too, and they have blind spots and weaknesses, and you're just dealing with one piece of the organization. It's one thing if you're talking with a company that's an employee base of 10 people. It's quite another when you're in thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. And so you're dealing with one person one day, another person could show up the next day. My oldest daughter started a job with Merrill Lynch about 1.5 years ago. 2 weeks after she was hired, her supervisor was changed. They promoted the supervisor that hired her into a different role where, I'll just call her Sally, was no longer going to be Nicole's supervisor. And here came Jerry. And Jerry now is the supervisor. Well, how does that affect my daughter Nicole's experience with Merrill Lynch and their culture? It affects it a lot. Thankfully, Jerry's a great guy, and Nicole and him get along quite nicely. But it could have gone the opposite direction. Remember, people are not necessarily good interviewers. They may not be even asking the right questions that they should be asking. I had an opportunity to work at a company where the owner and it was a smaller organization earlier in my career. He was about as opposite of me as you can get. And at first, wow, we were both amazed at how we could complement each other. But over time, we opposites attract, but pretty soon we became oil and water. We couldn't mix, we couldn't gel, and I left the organization. Organizations have many angles to consider, and it's not just matching up well with the hiring manager. You've got to consider the teammates that you have, or even if you're an individual contributor, where you're going to plug into departments to deliver your services or product deliverables. How is that going to be received? So inevitably, the challenging thing about culture, it's people, and people are about as different as night and day, as you all know. So now that I've hopefully not thoroughly discouraged you about the impossibility or impracticality of figuring out corporate culture on the organization side, I do have some practical steps that I think you can take to decipher whether you may be a good fit. And another word is discern, because it's not going to just scream out at you. You probably won't get the clear picture of that handshake coming together to say, oh boy, that's a fit. You're going to have to take a lot of signals in, because there's thousands of imperceptible steps. And yet you're not in the organization to observe on a daily basis what's going on. So I'm going to throw out some things, 8 things that you can do, I think, to start to get after it and discern what could be the right thing. Number 1, we like to start everything at Crossroads Career with, let's go to Scripture, let's talk with the Lord about this. And I lined out talking with the Lord because it's just such a, I prefer it to be very casual. I grew up in my dad was a pastor, and we grew up in a small Baptist church, and it was the King James Version, Bible only. And when my dad would pray, he would talk with these and thous, and it was the formal approach. And boy, that's how I grew up. I learned later on, that's not necessarily how everyone has to pray, and that's not the way I pray. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not the conversation. And I prefer to think about prayer as just an ongoing conversation with God throughout the day. And Scripture tells us to pray without ceasing. I didn't really understand what that meant, but if I'm in a posture of prayer throughout the day and I'm constantly referring up with what I call little arrow prayers, I'm going to be looking for that supernatural insight and direction. And there's a couple scriptures there that I think you might find useful. A very familiar one, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you. Okay, Lord, if you know the plans, I'd sure like for you just to share with me, a glimpse of that plan, just a little bit. 1 Kings 19:12, not as familiar. It talks about the Lord speaking not through the whirlwind, not through the fire, but through a whisper. And if we're not paying attention, we won't hear the whisper. If you think about what changes when your children or your spouse whispers to you, or someone whispers to you, well, you immediately quiet down. You usually lean forward. Your ears, if you could open up the flaps on them, they would be wide open. And you're intently trying to hear what's happening with the whisper. Well, I believe God's whispering to us, and Dave is just still yapping away. He's just talking. He says he's listening. Yeah, and my wife knows about this. I'm not really listening. I might be hearing those words, but it's not being comprehended. And when I think about getting together, having some quiet time, talking with the Lord, reading through the Psalms, as Harry introduced, thinking about those promises from Isaiah and the many hundreds of promises of what God tells us. God tells us not to fear, but yet what do? We fall into fear. He tells us not to get angry. We get angry about how we were treated at the last job that let us go. I mean, there could be countless things. There are countless things we need to talk with the Lord about. So I'd encourage you, if you're not already having a daily conversation and trying to make it as ongoing as possible, that's where your clue number 1, asking the Lord to open up your eyes, help you to see things that you previously hadn't seen as you look at these organizations that you're interviewing with. That's where you get some answers. Number two, compare the core values. At United Health Group, we had 5 core values that we anchored our United culture on: integrity, compassion, relationships, innovation, and performance. What are the definitions of those words? We actually had taglines and we had full definitions about what each of those values meant and what the behavior would be associated with those values. So if you were interviewing at United Health Group, a very easy question could be, what are the core values and what is expected of an to be seen as living out what those core values are? The hiring manager may or may not be able to answer that question. And you're going to get a clue from how they respond. Somebody may respond and just brighten up and lean forward and just unleash on you their view on core values and how important that is to an organization. And here's their own personal core values, and here's how it matches up, and here's what our United culture did for them and why they love it. It could go on and on. Someone else may just say, I think integrity is one of them. I think there's something about excellence or perform. I'm not quite sure, but we have them. And if you go to our website, you can see them. There's a big clue about the 2 different ways those people have responded. And a lot of this, as you're going to find through these 8 steps, these 8 clues, is you've got to take the initiative to ask the questions to figure this out. And the question there is, what is stated really practiced? Is it actual or aspirational? You're only going to find that out by asking the questions. And some of those questions you may ask, hey, over the last month or so, what's a way that you saw your organization's core values lived out within your organization, within your team, within how you treated someone? And it doesn't have to be some huge, newsworthy event. It could be something as simple as, I like to hold the door open for other people, because our definition of compassion is walking in the shoes of the people that you work with and those you serve. And I always like it when people hold the door open for me, so I hold the door open for other people. It could be that straightforward. It could be something straight from Dale Carnegie, his book, How to Influence People, a whole chapter about smiling and the power of a smile and what that does to the person receiving your smile. So I want to make sure you don't over-engineer this one to think that it has to be this huge story that they pull out of nowhere, but it can be very small. But again, the reaction to your questions is going to tell you a lot with clue number 2. Clue number 3, let's go find out what other people are saying about those organizations. And you just Google and see what shows up. My son works for a technology company called 𝘿𝙀. I didn't know anything about 𝘿𝙀, VEHO. So I Google 𝘿𝙀, and boy, there's a lot that shows up. And you can start looking to see what type of things are people saying. Now, you need to have a caution flag here, because in vault.com and glassdoor.com, it's not necessarily the positive people that are going there to share things. Many times people they have an axe to grind and they think they weren't treated well, and so they're just going to unload potentially in those websites. But you're going to start to pick up some themes. I mean, if a company has had a layoff, which almost every company in the world has had, how did they handle the layoff? Did they handle it the way, I can't remember the name of the company, but it hit the news where the young woman videotaped how she was let go, and it went viral. And the CEO eventually called in or had to apologize for the way that she was treated, even though he probably had no idea even who she was. Boy, that's a scary thing if there were videos running around on every time someone was let go, and how those organizations, and again, the organizations are really just groups of people, how the hiring manager or the HR person treated the person when they left. If you're going to see comment after comment that they weren't treated well, you're going to get a pretty good picture Again, another piece of the puzzle, another clue to the story of what's happening there with the culture at those organizations. Network. Yep, it's a Crossroads career presentation. Networking is going to come up. Sitting in your office at home and just filling out applications is definitely not the way to go. And networking, again, does not have to be a very formal process. I try to pump this book up as much as I possibly can. The 20-minute networking meeting is, to me, the gospel of networking. It literally tells you minute by minute how to use most effectively 20 minutes when you're meeting with someone else. So think about it from a corporate culture perspective. What questions could you ask as you're talking to someone who works at that organization? And it could be the very same questions that you would ask the hiring manager. You're just getting a different perspective. You can talk to vendors of the organization. You can talk to neighbors of the employees. I mean, you can talk to all sorts of people to find out information as you piece together these clues. We're going to hit more on those later. But if you think through the questions, one thing the 20-minute networking meeting book does very, very well is helping you figure out and structure the questions that you want to have prepared prior to meeting with the networking discussion. I know there's many discussions I have, very casual, cups of coffee, a breakfast meeting, a lunch meeting. But many times the people that are prepared, they pull out their notebook and they say, I've got a couple questions. Would you mind if I asked you these questions? I love that, because that to me tells me they're taking it seriously and they're being intentional with what they're hoping to get out of the conversation. So I'd encourage you to think of networking as just a conversation. As I mentioned earlier, it can be also viewed as missional. As a Christian, how can we minister to others, even though we're in job search? Those opportunities to show them the love of Christ that may be within you is a great opportunity. Number 5, apply a leadership lens. And Larry Sin is the CEO of 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚𝙦. They are the corporate culture consulting company that we employed at United Health Group as we started our culture journey. And when you think about what you permit is what you promote, or what you promote is what you permit, that goes both. Here's a couple examples. I'm going to promote the fact that, boy, we work hard at this organization, and everybody seems to know how many hours of overtime they've worked. I mean, not like I work a couple hundred. They can tell you they worked 214 hours of overtime last year, or 732. Well, what does that tell you about the corporate culture of the organization? An example from my earlier childhood, I worked at a McDonald's restaurant when I was in high school. I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and it was a really big deal that McDonald's restaurant was coming to our town. And I loved McDonald's. I actually still love McDonald's. One of the things I found were they had 3 corporate values of quality, service, and cleanliness. And they never wanted to sacrifice any of those 3 things. And that was drilled into our heads. I mean, when we had to mop the floors, you couldn't leave grease anywhere. When you cleaned the fryers, you had to make sure that there wasn't grease that droplets of water would hang on. I mean, you had to make sure everything was clean. Well, it's one thing to get that drilled into. It's another thing when you see it in action. And I'll never forget, the owner of the store was actually working in the store that day. It was a Saturday lunch. We had a couple buses come in. I mean, it was jam-packed. And our French fry machine started going on the fritz. And the French fries were soggy. They weren't crisp and golden. I still love McDonald's French fries. And it was not the quality. And our owner turned the machine off. He refused to sell, even though he could have, because those people, I mean, the hundreds of people that were coming through there, they were just wanting their fries. They didn't hit the standard of quality that he believed. Well, as the leader of our store, when he shuts off the machine, what do you think that tells me is okay to do as a swing manager? It told me that I'm okay to shut down things too if I don't think the quality is there, because the owner wants that to happen. The leader said, I will not permit poor quality. And that's what he then promoted to the rest of us as what his expectation was. So again, whether it be through networking, whether it be looking around at things outside of a direct conversation, where can you see what leaders have done at their organization? Sometimes you can get that through the news. At United Health Group years ago, when the Obamacare came out and we were a little late to the party in getting involved in the exchanges, the health exchanges, we kind of watched. We did a little bit in a couple markets, and the next year we just moved in and went to 27 different markets. 2 years later, we moved out. They weren't producing the results. And at the start of the investor conference, our CEO knew that that was going to be a question that would be thrown to the variety of different senior leaders through the discussions at investor conference. And he just said, before we get into this, I want to say, acknowledge that this happened and tell you it was my decision. And that's that. And he just put it to bed right up front. So what a leader does and what he says is important. What she does is important. And so their walk needs to support their talk. And that's going to tell you a lot about the corporate culture. I referred to a couple of these earlier. You compare and contrast very, very broadly. I think all of you, you may not have stayed at a Ritz-Carlton or a Comfort Inn lately, but you could probably tell me what you believe the differences are, the feel that you would have. If I asked you what's the mission of a Ritz-Carlton, even if you've never stayed there, you might remember the phrase "ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen." Comfort Inn, no clue. Maybe we have really good instant eggs with our breakfast in the morning. I mean, but all of that, and it's not a value judgment about whether one is good or bad. It's just different. They emphasize different things. And it's just like the ophthalmologist that says, as they're trying to get our eyes figured out, and they'll say, are you lens 1, lens 2, lens 3, lens 4, the more that you start to compare and contrast, and then here's the key, write down some of these things. If you contrast United Health Group and Humana, there are differences there. And if you're in healthcare, you're going to start to understand, or you will understand some immediate differences. If you're in the restaurant business, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, et cetera, you get the picture. But whatever your industry is, you start contrasting and writing down what those things are, you're going to see some clues come out about the corporate culture. Reference checks. I had a lot of fun when I was thinking about this one. Many times some people don't even know what reference checks are. Those are done by employers to confirm that you are who you say you are. It's an investigative process. Usually it's very quick and it's at the end of the process. I'd encourage you to think of doing reference checks on future employers throughout the process, and to ask some very direct questions, some of which we've talked about a little bit before, as to what kind of company they believe they are. If you understand that Charlie Shield is the hiring manager in the department that you're applying to, well, what can you find out about Charlie Shield? Well, there's a lot you can find out about Charlie Shield. And LinkedIn is a great tool to start to see what the path is. And you'll see that Charlie Shield, he worked with a company that your neighbor used to work for. Oh, now I can go talk to the neighbor and find out about Charlie Shield. I mean, if you really take the time to look at this as an investigative process, you will find out some new information. And when you think about why is this important, if you've been the victim of a bad cultural fit, you'll understand it's worth the time. Direct questions in the interview process is how this is different than some of the other ones that I've talked about so far. Here are 3 samples. And by the way, I did a blog series on cultural fit. You can find on our Crossroads career website, crossroadscareer.org. And if you look at our blogs from June 14th of 2022 to July 26th of 2022, you'll see a blog on each one of these 8 clues. And in there, I list out questions that you could ask, questions that you might find familiar. So here's 3 of the questions in the blog on July 26th in 2022. On clue number 8, I give you 10 questions. So here's 3, there's 10 all total, and I'm sure there could be others, but where you actually brace up the hiring manager, the team members about what their corporate culture looks like. And if they can't answer the question clearly, it's going to tell you something. You're going to have a feel. Again, it's not a clear picture. You're not going to get an answer. Well, no, our corporate culture stinks. It's horrible. I'm trying to get out of here. That usually won't come out in an interview process. You never know. I mean, it could, but it's through the triangulation of many different people and asking that question or a series of questions that you're going to find that out. And there's nothing wrong with using the same question on different people. So the question, how would you describe your corporate culture? That's an easy one to ask every single person you interview with from that organization. What kind of answers do they give? Are they similar? Are they dramatically different? So 8 steps that you can think about and take into account as you're trying to figure out just how they do things around there. What are those hundreds of imperceptible things that happen on a daily basis that create a corporate culture? And then I'd also encourage you not to forget you're a big piece of this, and to go back to those 14 different things that are out there as to how do you know yourself well enough to know if it's a good fit? So you may say, well, yeah, integrity is important to me. It's a value at United Health Group, so I'm going to fit at United Health Group. Usually not that simple. There's more investigation. It's a step in the process, but you need some more investigation. Last slide here. Nobody, and I mean nobody, will care about this as much as you do. It's a terrible feeling. I've been there. You may have been there when you know that you're not a fit. It's worth the work. So I'd encourage you to take these steps, create 8 more steps that work for you, but do treat this carefully and seriously, because where you end up on this will make a difference, because this is where, again, you're spending the majority of your working hours waking hours at work, rather, and it'll pay off. So with that, I'll stop sharing. We'll come back to Harry, and we'll facilitate some questions if we have time.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, there's a couple of comments and a question here. Lee says, whenever I job hunt, I encounter a job description that is intentionally misleading, like claiming a job is remote, but it's actually on site. I think sometimes there's other things in job descriptions that give you a different impression than what the job really is, though, too.
I completely agree. And unfortunately, job descriptions are not paid very much attention. And most job descriptions had the CPA approach. They were cut, paste, and assemble. And most people are not thinking about, how can I really articulate what is needed in my position? I just need somebody like Sally. They just can't get off that. And when you say, well, hey, I need you to tell me some of the attributes. What did Sally do well? Well, she always seemed to know her numbers. Okay, well, does that mean she's good at Excel or not good at Excel? Does that mean she, Power BI or not? As an HR person, I had to probe a great deal oftentimes to come up with a job description that was remote, not to use but I just don't think people pay attention to them. I don't think that most companies are wanting to intentionally mislead people about the job description, because that does them a disservice. I just don't think they pay attention to it, and then it backfires on them, much like you found, where the job that they say is remote isn't even remote. Well, that just shows to me that, they're not really paying attention to their performance, which is a core value potentially.
Yeah.
Harry, I know you've had a
I
lot of experience
Yeah,
with this.
and actually you would have better understanding of this than I do, but typically what happens is a company creates a job description at a point in time within the organization. And so when they need to refill that job, they pull up a job description that may have been created 5, 6, 7 years ago. And, then they review it and try to edit it, but it doesn't get edited as thoroughly as it should be. And that job has evolved over time. It's become different requirements, different focuses. Maybe it's a different manager at this point that has different priorities for the job than the last manager did when the job description was created. And so, they might make some tweaks, but put out there what they have, which is a heck of a lot easier than starting from scratch and building a new job description. And I think very often it's not that they're intentionally trying to deceive, but they just take the path of least resistance, and it's not necessarily current information. Is that a fair representation of what often happens inside an organization, I think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, we're being polite about saying this is how they work, and it's just stupid in reality. But when you think about the whole interview process, it's not manufactured very well to begin with, because everyone's trying to move with such speed, and yet then it bogs down. I mean, we've had senior executive, I've had a job description and an offer take place within 24 hours. So when we put our minds to it, we could really move quickly. I've had other job descriptions just for your run-of-the-mill accountant within the organization take, 2 months. It's like, what's so hard about this? It's filled with people, and people are not perfect, and you find some crazy things.
Judy asks, may I ask your opinion about these two possible interview questions? One, what are the traits of the most successful hire you've made recently? And I'm assuming this is as a candidate asking the employer. And then two is, what are the traits of a recent hire that didn't succeed, and why?
I think those are great questions.
I agree.
Because you're going to get a feel for, well, what is the focus of that person? And then as you line those up with some of the other questions you may ask, you're going to see, well, are they basing that on skills or on values or experiences? I mean, where are they coming up with those attributes that they're highlighting? I think those are both very good questions.
Agreed. We have Yasmin. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but she says, I appreciate how you talk about knowing yourself and what you value and what you have to offer, what you're looking for. It provides so much direction in the job search and clarity to interviewers. I think having that self-awareness is critical. You can speak more on that. I think you covered it well, but
well, one thing I'll do a very unshameful plug, Harry, if you don't mind. I'm going to be starting an online group Tuesday nights, starting this coming Tuesday, called Work Calling. And it's with the workbook that we've had out now for a couple of years. And it's helping you discover your life purpose, your core values, your unique distinctions. Where is your identity really held? What is your vocational calling? And we're trying to take you through an 8-week process. We meet every Tuesday night for an hour and a half on the web, have a free workbook on a PDF for you. And we have found people that go through that we really start to dig into, how do you articulate some of those things? And so if any of you would like to join, you can go to crossroadscareer.org, and you'll see there's an online group tab that you can, and then register. And I'd love to have you join me on Tuesday nights. It's at 7:00 Central every Tuesday night.
That self-understanding and self-awareness is so critical in this process, because unless you know what conditions and types of people and culture where you need for you to thrive. You don't know the right questions to ask. You don't know what you're looking for, or hoping to hear. Everything sounds good when you don't have a target of what you want out of it. And I often say, and I've seen this many times, is there are certainly companies that have objectively better cultures than others. There's no question about that. But even at companies that have what's considered generally a bad culture, there are people there that love their jobs, and it's a matter of, does it fit you or not? And unless you know what you thrive in, you don't know if it's going to be a good fit or not.
Well, and Harry, you and I talked over the years while I was still at United Health Group. It's impossible for one person to know the culture of that large of an organization. I mean, every department could have a little different culture, but what's so important is that senior leadership set forth clearly what they expect. And I find that comes through the core values of the organization. The mission and the core values, to me, are the most important things to define what the core culture could be. Because otherwise, if you don't define it, as I mentioned earlier, well, what exactly do you mean by that? And you can have little catchphrases, but for me to say, well, come to United Health Group, we have good old Midwestern values. We're come to the Minnesota value. Well, come on. I mean, tell me exactly what you mean by that. So
Minnesota values could mean passive aggressive, right?
Well, exactly.
We have someone else says, "Hi, Dave. Thanks for the thought-provoking webinar. As the world is becoming more virtual, can you please comment on the necessity of on-site interviews, the final round for the top few candidates?"
Boy, I would love for that to happen. Unfortunately, the world does not conform to Dave's desires. I had people at United Health Group that had never physically met the person that they were supervised by. Time and cost prohibited that on one level. On another level, the values of the company were not strong enough to make that important, right? It was whenever my wife Carrie, she has some wonderful insight, and she would oftentimes tell me, Dave, you and United Health Group can do anything you really want to do. You're just saying you can't do it because of some excuse. And you know what? She's right. Every company, organization, we as people can do whatever we want to do. It's a question of whether we want to do it enough to go that extra step, pay that extra money, whatever it is. And so I would love for interviews to all be in person. I think there's no replacement for a face-to-face conversation and the interaction that takes place. Unfortunately, that won't always happen, and particularly for remote work. I'd encourage as many Zoom conversations as you can have, or webinars, Teams, to be able to see the facial reactions. And then there's all sorts of technology that even after you're hired, you can start to have virtual meetings where you're not just a voice coming over a telephone, but getting your videos on. And that's one thing that I found very interesting as I've done some speaking with organizations, and everybody's got their camera off. And I'm speaking, and I'm like, no, turn your cameras on, dadgummit. I want to see your faces. Let's engage here. Let's not just have this voice coming out from a guy called Dave. But
Agreed. Another question here that I'm going to adjust a little bit for clarity, but do you feel that's proactively stating your core values over the course of the interview can help land the job, or at the very least have a potential employer remember you?
Boy, I think that's a great point. I would highly encourage you to do that, because it's much like Tony Dungy saying, this is what I'm about, even before he's asked the question of how bad do you want to win a Super Bowl. I mean, if you were a player in the NFL, I'm betting word traveled pretty fast about what it was like to play for Tony Dungy versus fill in the blank. And I think the more that you state who you are, it also helps the organization increase the odds that they are going to find you or want you or not. And I'm not saying that you're, in their face, blatant, I'm an integrity lover, and if you don't define integrity the way okay. But if you just say, I'm a very values, I like to make decisions using my personal core values, and my core values consist of, boom, just very matter-of-factly, and you see if the hiring manager takes the bait. Do they respond about, man, that's awesome. Our core values are this, and then they start talking about it? Or do they just ignore what you say and just talk? Well, that's a clue. That's a clue. So I would highly encourage you to do it.
I would too. And, realizing that when you do that, you're kind of drawing a line in the sand, and that might mean that they don't resonate with what you said. And it doesn't feel good not to get an offer, but that's probably a good thing, because if their values don't align, you're not going to be successful there, and you're not going to be able to thrive. And so it's, not getting a job sometimes is the best answer than getting an offer every time you go to an interview.
Yes, completely agree.
Besides LinkedIn, what other resources would you use for company research to explore company challenges? Maybe to find out the biggest company challenge, and how will this potential job help to overcome it? Or how will I measure my own performance so I know I'm positively impacting this challenge? It's a good question. Tough one.
It's a good question. Indeed is another website that can talk about companies. If your company is publicly traded, analysts will have opinions on on the organization. Like if I went in and Googled, what is United Health Group's biggest challenge for 2024? I'm going to get a wide variety of things that will pop up that I can go further on. A privately held company, it's a little bit harder, but depending on the size of the organization, you may find some things as well. So like if you work for Koch Industries or Cargill, they're huge. So they're going to be in the news. If you're working for Charlie's Chiropractic Center, probably not. And so a lot depends on the size and the amount of interaction an organization has with the consumer. So there's not, but I would just literally Google whatever your question is and see what starts to pop up. Because you'll find some pretty remote places that might have some really good insights for you.
But I think those are fair questions to ask in an interview too. What are some of the biggest challenges for the organization, and how would this role impact that? And they may or may not have an answer for you, but it'll certainly show that you're insightful about wanting to contribute.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the name of the session on Tuesday evenings, and how can people find that?
Yeah, so it's called Work Calling, and you can go to crossroadscareer.org, and under resources is a tab called Online Groups. And my group will be listed there, and there's a button for you to click to register. So that will hopefully,
yeah.
And if you have trouble with that, you can come to my email, davesparkman16@gmail.com, davesparkman16@gmail.com, and I can help you figure out how to get in there. I'd love to have, there's room for more participants.
And that's different from our normal Crossroads small group classes, which focus primarily on job search strategies. And I'll be describing more of that here in just a minute or two. But so these are two distinct, different classes. This one is really about figuring out your calling, right?
Right. That's right.
Exactly, which I think has great value. Dave, we were just in a conversation here. Oh, somebody posted the link for the online groups. Terrific.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But we're in another conversation here a couple of days ago about that's a challenge sometimes, helping people figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Or what they're called to do.
In almost every conversation I have with someone, Harry, much like we've compared notes over the years, gets into that. And that isn't just from the 23-year-old, that's from the 47-year-old. And even, I took my men's group through there, and we have an 84-year-old in my men's group, and he's like, okay, got to see what God's got for me next. This is great. And he starts tearing into it. And, for his vocational calling as a retired person. So anyway.
One more here. Is it worthwhile to ask a company about the kinds of workplace accommodations they offer in an interview? I had to quit my last job because they refused to grant me one, but I worry that it would make me less likely to be hired if I ask that type of question at the interview.
I think it's, you want to be careful with that question, I think, because you don't want to come across much as you said as being a high maintenance type of person. But I think to ask the question, what kind of accommodations are offered for this position, particularly if it's a remote position, what kind of technology is given or offered? I mean, does a person get a desk from the company? Do they get a monitor? I mean, what do you have to provide yourself? I mean, that is a very fair question to want to understand what you do or don't get. Now, if you're asking, well, I need a fan in my room so I can stay cool, okay, that may be a little bit over the top in their view. So I think but just ask broadly and see where it comes at versus getting too specific. I mean, Harry, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, I agree. I would certainly wait till later in the interview process versus, in the first interview, so that, the more they fall in love with you, the less that becomes an issue at all. And so give them a chance to understand who you are and what you bring to the organization before you start requesting special accommodations. But I mean, it's certainly at the point of an offer, you want to make that clear, and it's depending on what it is and what your needs are, it may be obviously a matter of whether you can accept the job or not, and so you need to address it at some point. But I think a little bit later in the process is probably going to be a better timing than right off the bat. Well, thank you, Dave. And I forgot to mention to everybody at the beginning, but while we started here at Central Time at 7:30 a.m. for this webinar, Dave is joining us from the San Diego area, and he got up really bright and early and joined us at 5:30 this morning. So really grateful for that, and whatever sleep he may have lost, hopefully he can get a nap this afternoon or something. But really grateful that he was able to join us and do this for us. He brings a lot of insight, and I hope it was worthwhile. I do want to take just another couple minutes here to run through quickly all the other things that we have available for you through Crossroads, and really encourage you to plug in and take advantage of these things so that your job search is more successful and painless, and that we can help you be more effective. So let me share my screen here. I have a few slides, and we'll, like I say, run through that and then let you go here this morning. If this is your first time attending one of our webinars or any of our events, we will be mailing to you a copy of this book, How Long, O Lord, How Long? It's a daily devotional dedicated to people that are in job transition, or for those that love them, but it covers every aspect of the emotional journey you go through in this process. And there's an index in the back, so you can look up on any day, here's what I'm really frustrated with or finding challenging, or what I am facing today. And there's some great insight and scripture and stories that can be encouraging and hopeful and help you. So that'll be mailed to you for free if this is your first time. If you've already gotten one in the past, you won't be getting a second one, but I'm glad to give that as a free gift so that you can be encouraged by it and helped. You probably went to our website to sign up for this webinar this morning, but really encourage you to go back to the website and peruse all the information there. We have a number of different resources and events, and you can take advantage of all of it for free, and you can find the information there. We also have a job board. There's a lot of local companies here in the Minneapolis area that know what we do, know that great people attend and participate in Crossroads, and they're trying to find you. And so check out our job board regularly, and many of those postings have contact names of the person that is posting the position. And so you can reach out and ask questions and follow up as well, instead of just applying to a black hole. But, we don't have as many jobs on there as Indeed.com, but there is a lot that can be worthwhile and a wide variety of jobs. So check that out regularly. In Crossroads, we have 3 different ways you can get plugged in and locations. So our monthly routine is that on the first Thursday of every month, we meet in person at Grace Church in Eden Prairie and have one of these topical presentations, as well as some time to connect with other people and other resources for you there. And so that's at 7:30 a.m. on the first Thursday of every month. At 7 p.m. every second Thursday evening, we meet at Woodbury Lutheran Church, and that's in person only as well. And it's a chance for people on the other side of town to be able to participate in person as well. And then the third Thursday evening is what you're attending now. We do an online webinar presentation, and that'll be only online, not in person at all. And people can participate. And one thing I've been really impressed and inspired about is our online, and I'll be able to see the list afterwards where you're all attending from, but we typically get people from all across the country, and I'm just really grateful that we're able to have that kind of a reach. In fact, our webinar last month, we had people from 14 states and 4 countries, which is astounding to me, but glad you're all here and can take advantage of these things. But all the details are always on our website at mncrossroads.com. On a weekly basis, there's multiple other ways you can plug in as well. So every Thursday morning, starting shortly here at 9 a.m., we have Networking with Grace. It's also by Zoom meeting online, and that's a Zoom meeting, not a webinar platform like this, so you can all see each other and participate. But it's professional networking, so you can share ideas, contacts, leads with each other. It's led by Wes Tang, and he's really good at making sure everybody walks away with something each week. He really emphasizes give before you get. And so, be open and willing to share and help others, and you'll get help in return and people sharing with you. But it's every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. You do need to register in advance online to get the Zoom link for that, but encourage you to take advantage of it. Jill is posting those networking sessions are great. I agree. And Wes does a terrific job with it. I really encourage you to participate. We have one-on-one coaching available, so you can sign up online. There's a short form to ask for your contact information, and one of our volunteers will reach back out to you, and you can do that at anytime and as often as you'd like. But anything you want to discuss about your job search, whether you have questions about networking or somebody to look at your resume and help you improve it, or if you have an interview coming up and you want to prepare and talk about that, whatever it may be. Or sometimes it's just as helpful to talk through your situation in your job search and get some fresh ideas and insight and be able to articulate it with somebody that really gets what's going on. And so we have a number of volunteers that have insight into all this, have some great experience, and can share with you. So sign up on the forum. Somebody will reach back out to you to set up a time that works for both of you for either a phone conversation or a Zoom meeting, and you can take advantage of that. As I had mentioned before, the job search process can be an emotional roller coaster with its ups and downs. And so I am grateful we have a team of people that love to pray for you. And so we have a prayer request page on the team, prayer request page on the website. You can fill out information and somebody will let you know that they've been praying for you. Or if you want to talk to somebody and get some additional spiritual support through this process because you've been finding challenges, we have soul care people that will volunteer for that as well. And so details are on the website. Check it out and take advantage of it. The meat and potatoes and where you can get the most help and kind of ongoing support for your job search is our online classes. We have online Zoom meetings for classes that start each month. We have a new one starting each month, 8-week class that covers every aspect of a job search, and starting with attitude and getting in the right frame of mind so you present yourself as positively as you can. We do some assessments so that you can better articulate what makes you unique and what you bring to the table that others don't. We talk a lot about networking and targeting companies and how to do that effectively and the importance of it, because it really is the most likely way you're going to land a new job versus just applying for a ton of positions all over the place. And we talked a lot through that. We cover resumes thoroughly in terms of best practices and how to make sure yours is as likely to get you calls as anything. We talk about interviewing, different formats and styles and interview questions and how to address different situations and interviews. We go into that thoroughly. We talk about negotiating and selecting, and there's more. We talk about LinkedIn and other topics. And so really encourage you to take advantage of that, because that's really where you can get the most in-depth help. And as important as all the content is and effective and really makes a difference, I think equally important is that light accountability you get each week by being in a group with others that are in the same boat, the encouragement and moral support and getting a new spring in your step for the next week and kind of evening out that roller coaster a bit. And throughout the 8 weeks, we talk about what's God's perspective of your job search and your life, because I think those bigger questions go a long way to helping you be successful in the smaller things as well. Jobs are critically important, but your perspective of who God is and what he means in your life is even more important. So we have new classes starting each month. I am going to be actually starting a group beginning Tuesday afternoons on February 6th, whatever, I think that's the correct date, whatever the Tuesday is around February 6th. The details are on our website, mncrossroads.com. You can send me an email. There's the information there, how to do that, and more details about the classes. So check it out, get plugged in. It really does make a big difference in terms of the attitude and information that you can get for your job search. If you haven't already, join our LinkedIn group, MN Crossroads Career Network. Put that in the search box at the top. And there's a ton of great information and upcoming events that gets posted in there. But I think more important is we're right around 2,500 members in the group now. All of them are people that have been through Crossroads. The vast overwhelming majority of them are 99% of them are landed in new jobs since then and are willing to be contacts at their organizations. And it's a great way you can give back after you land as well, to just be available for people to be able to reach out to you and ask questions, maybe get some referrals, whatever you're comfortable in sharing with them. But it's a great way for you while you're in your search to find people at organizations you're interested in and potentially get some help or insight or advice in those situations. So join our group, check out the people that are in there as members, and hopefully that can be a great resource for you. This webinar, as well as all of the webinars we've done over the last few years, are posted on our YouTube channel. So put in MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box in YouTube. You'll find us there, and you can review this one, but you can also check out all the other topics we've had and check out what might be of interest and helpful for you. You can watch them in double time in case they're moving too slowly. You can skip forward and back and skip through the things you don't want to review and listen to the parts you do. And so if you are bored on a Friday night, you can do that to watch job search videos. But it really is a great way to be able to get more content. A couple people are asking for Dave's email. When we're done here, I'll type that in there for you to make sure you have that available. I just want to acknowledge that there's over 40 people that volunteer for Crossroads. This is some of them, not all of them. And I'm grateful for every one of them. It enables us to offer all the different things we do. We have a ton of different areas of expertise that people bring to the table, and all of them are doing this on a volunteer basis. Nobody's getting a paycheck. They do it because they want to help others and have a heart to serve. And so I'm grateful for each one of them and want to acknowledge that there's a lot of people that go into this. If you don't have a church home, I encourage you to join or pay attention to one of the churches that sponsors Crossroads, Grace Church in Eden Prairie and Woodbury Lutheran Church in Woodbury, obviously. And you can find information about each of those churches at the website, but they have in-person and streaming services. Encourage you to check it out. And our next Crossroads presentation will be in person at Grace Church on Tuesday morning, February 1st, and it'll feature 𝘿𝙚𝙩𝙚, who owns a retained executive search firm, and he'll talk about what recruiters want and how to work with them effectively. And it's going to be really a pretty compelling topic. He has a lot of great information, and encourage you to take advantage of that. Sorry, I'm distracted here because I'm looking at the chat at the same time as I'm talking, but Judy did post Dave's email account in there. I'm grateful for that. And how to find Networking Grace in the app. Best way to access the information on that is go to the Grace, or to our Crossroads website, mncrossroads.com, and look up networking from the homepage. You'll be able to sign up for it there. So I hope this was worthwhile for you this morning. I hope you take advantage of other resources we have available. Let me click back here, and I hope that you'll join us again for other topics and presentations. Thanks for coming, and see you again soon. Take care.